President, according to the Forest Service, and we checked with them this morning, there is right now an 11,000-acre fire burning in the Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. Now, of course, this is just April, not the time when one normally thinks you're going to have fires and the fire season is on, but there's a fire, according to the Forest Service, burning in Shenandoah National Park in Virginia that has already cost more than $3 million. This is the second largest fire in Shenandoah National Park history. And I've come to the floor this afternoon to once again make the case for the Senate on a bipartisan basis, Democrats and Republicans coming together to fix this dysfunctional system of fighting fire in America. And I'm going to describe it, but let me just talk first a little bit about the consequences. In the American West, Mr. President, we used to talk about the seasons in a way that Americans had done for decades and decades. Harvesting crops in the fall, skiing in the winter, fishing during the spring salmon runs, camping in the summers, and we fought fire during the wildfire season. But when Americans in the West talk about the seasons now, they are talking about the seasons of yesteryear. And that's because the wildfire season raging across our forests in special places is no longer limited to a single time of the year. Fighting fires has become a continuous battle, virtually year-round throughout the country. And that's why this fire burning in the Shenandoah National Park ought to be a wake-up call once again to everyone to understand how important it is to fix this broken system of fighting fire, because the funding system for doing so is leading to dysfunction throughout the Forest Service and contributing to the breakdown of national forest management that is needed to prevent catastrophic wildfires in the first place. Now, according to the Forest Service, 1.4 million acres have already burned across America this year. That's more than twice the 10-year average for this time of year. These numbers show, in my view, how important it is that urgent action be taken to fix the way we fund wildfire fighting operations. And this is something that Senator Crapo and I have been working on for some time, with the support of scores of organizations, well over 200, a significant number of bipartisan senators, a significant number of bipartisan House members have all joined in this effort, because it is not just the West that has been impacted. Forest Service work in states that manage timber sales, stream restoration, trail maintenance, and recreation gets shortchanged when money has been diverted to fighting wildfires. I was particularly struck, Mr. President, last year when we had the good fortune of having the senior senator from New York, Senator Schumer, join as a co-sponsor of our legislation. And the reason he did is because this absolutely dysfunctional system of fighting fires has resulted in important priorities for New York State not being in a position to secure the funding they need. And that's because the rising cost of fighting fires keeps raiding all these other programs in the Forest Service that are needed to help prevent fires down the road. And the raids take place two different ways. Certainly in my part of the world, we're very troubled by the fact that you have prevention getting short shrift, then it gets really hot and dry, and we have lots of thunderstorms in our part of the world, and all of a sudden we got an inferno on our hands. And then what happens is the agencies end up borrowing from the prevention fund to put the fire out, and the problem just gets worse because you have repeatedly shorted the prevention program. This is what's called fire borrowing, and it happens not just in the West, Mr. President. That's why the senior senator from New York wanted to be a co-sponsor of our legislation, because programs that were important to New York State, thousands and thousands of miles away from the forests of eastern and central, Oregon, it was a problem for programs he cared about to secure their funding as a result of this dysfunctional system, just like it has been for people in the West. So it is time for the Congress to find a solution to ensure, one, that wildfires can be fought, and two, to control the costs of fighting these wildfires by better preparing our forests and making them healthier. And I'm very pleased that the chair of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee I had the honor of chairing in the past, Senator Murkowski, and the ranking member, Senator Cantwell, are committed to working on this issue, and I wanted to once again reaffirm my commitment, and I know Senator Crapo shares this view, to work with them to find a solution to wildfire funding that can pass in this Congress. I certainly have some ideas, and I'm very interested in welcoming my colleagues' ideas, and have for some time. For example, Mr. President, last year in the summer, it was pretty clear that it was going to be a tough, fire season. So what I and others essentially sought to do was to find a way to get our colleagues working together to try to find some common ground and get this resolved. Well, we couldn't quite get it done. So we're going to now be at this day in, day out, week in and week out, Senator Crapo and I, working with our colleagues and their staff on the Energy and Natural Resources Committee and on the Budget Committee, and members from the other body, to find a solution that works for all sides of the issue. And we saw last summer that this was going to be a problem, and a big group of us got together and said, we've got to get it resolved. But we couldn't quite thread the needle. This time, we have to make sure that gets done. There are not a lot of certainties in life, but the fire season is one of them, and the Congress simply cannot let this problem continue. And I wanted to come to the floor in particular today, Mr. President, to take note of the fact that that fire in the Shenandoah area ought to be a wake-up call to everybody. If you're having one of the biggest fires they've ever had this early in April, that's just a signal of what's to come. And it has been the story of summer after summer after summer. And now we're learning, as I indicated earlier, that we normally think of the seasons, and it appears it's not just in the West. Thinking about the seasons is talking about the seasons of yesteryear, because now it is fire season all year round. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I know that my colleague is here, so.